Hello and welcome, everybody. SF Live, episode 233 on this Monday morning. It's an exciting week. You can tell in my voice. I'm quite excited about what is going on this week. We have the circus back in town. Roundup is happening, and I'm quite excited that this is happening as a hybrid event. It's not just virtual. There's people in town. People travel. People came to Vancouver, and one of them is sitting right next to me, or right in front of me right now, and it's Trevor Hall, Mining Stock Daily. I'll switch camera angles in just a second, but I'm really looking forward to the conversation with the man behind the best mining podcast, and I'm not lying when I say that, and he doesn't even blush anymore. I'm just looking at it. No, but you can tell. Like, I'm looking forward to the in-person event. I can't wait to go down there again, giving a presentation tomorrow as well. I'm looking forward to that, and we're going to catch up with Trevor now, talk about his schedule, like some of the themes of Roundup as well, but also some general market themes and some things he sees, because he talks to a lot of people on a daily basis, and he's quite opinionated as well, because we chat quite often as well, and it's fun to exchange ideas with him. But before I switch over to my guests, please be reminded to follow us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, hit the like and subscribe button, of course, as well, and let us know what you think about it, and share the video with your friends. Thanks so much for that. And now let me switch over to my guest, and Trevor, it is great to see you. How are you, bud?
Man, I am so stoked to be back in Vancouver. Like I remember it was 2 years ago. It literally was 2 years ago. And when I remember, like, it didn't, like, the magnitude of what I was witnessing on TV last time I was in Vancouver, when they were talking about a virus outbreak in China. Little did I know I wouldn't be back.
Yeah,
2 years. And I tell you what, I was excited for this trip, and I know, like, things are still kind of iffy, and there's, like, regulations all around, and obviously Canada's being a little bit more strict than where I live in the U.S. But I'm so excited to be back.
Oh, yeah.
And I brought sunshine too.
Yeah, I appreciate that, by the way. I was like, it looks fantastic. Yesterday it was pouring rain. Now I see you. Sun is out. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So, and I love your studio.
Thank you.
Like, it's a real studio.
It is
great.
Yeah, it's like my COVID hobby right here. Like,
it is.
I needed a project, and this is what
you knocked it out of the park, guy.
I was bored, and I couldn't be home all the time. So
right.
It was fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, it's good to see you in person. Like, so you traveled. Like, how was the experience? How was it? Like,
it was fine. I was trying to, a lot of applicable paperwork arrived Canada. Get the whole COVID testing figured out. Actually, the biggest issue was on, like, the state side, and I don't need to go into it, but it was, just getting everything ready and the checklist marked off and get on the plane and go. And once I landed, it was
easy,
right through.
Fantastic.
So now I just got to get that test back. So should be all right, I think.
All good.
Yeah.
So, but you've been to the conference floor already, so we're talking Roundup, of course. Have you've been down to the convention?
Yeah, I mean, I just one of the things that didn't go right is, so I actually have a banner. I got a booth. So if you are attending Roundup, come say hi. Booth 528. I'm the only guy with all the microphones doing interviews. I don't have any swag. Sorry. There's all that I'm just kind of a terrible planner like that. But so we got a booth. I got there set up. I've got my banner, but I don't have the banner stands because I shipped them a week and a half ago, and you would think they'd make it to Vancouver in time. They just got to Vancouver this morning, so they're on a truck heading to a warehouse, and the warehouse is then going to drive it from Burnaby to Vancouver. So maybe tomorrow I'll actually have my banner up.
Oh, no, we've been getting mail that was mailed from Germany, for example, on December 13th. We got that January 23rd.
Crazy.
Like with the weather disruptions, COVID, and all that, like the mail system is completely loosey-goosey right now.
So I mean, but it's neither here or there. It's not a make it or break it. I'm just happy to be here with my friends and colleagues.
Exactly. No, and we've got a dinner planned as well. I'm looking forward to that. What does your schedule look like? Let's run through it. Like, it's a hybrid event.
Yeah, it's a hybrid event. So a couple of things. So I've got a handful of interviews scheduled each day. I've left myself enough time during the day to where I can pick off people that I didn't get scheduled or interested in having onto the pod to get either corporate updates, market updates, or whatever. So I can kind of, with the pod, it's free flowing, and so that's how I left my schedule. Except for late in the afternoon, we will be doing kind of a Roundup podcast with AME to talk about the events of the day, what transpired, some of the conversations that were happening, discussions and speakers or whatever. And then we'll be talking to a couple of specific companies that are directly involved with AME Roundup this year to help that organization really get this thing back in person, and both in person and virtually. I just want to say, if I can, I've been working with Roundup, I've been working with Association for Mineral Exploration for, I don't know, 5 years now. I've been on their communications committee. It's a great organization. It is really, I believe, the staple organization for mineral exploration in this province, and obviously one of the most important ones in the entire country of Canada. Last 2 years have not been easy. So for Kendra and all those people at AME to get this in person and do what they can, I think they get a tremendous amount of kudos.
Oh, for sure. It's not easy, especially right now, pulling off a hybrid event.
No.
Hat tip for sure.
No, but this Roundup has always been a staple of this industry, and it needs to continue to be so.
It's important.
Absolutely.
And we discussed this before, and it's about the rocks, not the stocks. Right?
You coined that .com.
I fortunately did. Patent pending, right? But the point is, this is where ideas get exchanged, projects get exchanged, and projects there's a lot of flow in that regard. Right. And that's been missing.
Right. So, and it's, it's not so, yeah, you're right. It's you're not going to see a bunch of big high net worth investors come in here. I did see Mark Katzberg this morning. He's pretty big deal. But
shout out to Mark.
So it's not about the equities or the stocks, obviously. But what happens in this event is you get so much technical discussion from not only people that have been exploring for a generation or two or three, but for also the new geos that are have put together companies, found projects, the floods, Dustin Perry, there's a lot of great young geos that are going to be around for decades. Yeah. And if you believe in these individuals and their knowledge and their early successes, it's like what Rick Rule has always said, he could have made a bigger killing on top of the success he has had if he just would have followed the same people for decades. He said that before. Yeah. Now here we are with a great group of young geos setting themselves up for success, and I just think learn from people like Rick Rule and follow these young people. These young executives. And
here you can learn from them. You get all the time in the world. Yeah. 4 days. You can actually look and discuss core with them as well. Core Shack is set up and everything. What do you think is one of the themes of the conference, or is going to be one of the themes here overall? there's always a bit of an overlying theme. A topic that gets discussed widely. Is it?
I feel bad. They do have a theme. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Well, the theme is what the conference says, but what does the audience want to discuss, right? Is there a hot regional area, Great Bear Takeout? Is Red Lake going to be the topic of discussion, or a staking rush in Newfoundland, or even BC Golden Triangle, since we are in BC?
Yeah, right? So I think one of the interesting things is, despite the pandemic, I'm pretty certain that the province has broken records for amount of money raised. You would probably know that better than I, but I think it's pretty damn high compared to recently. Or
I actually have to check the numbers, but yeah.
But also meters drilled in BC. So there is a lot of great work happening, early stage exploration in this province, and I think that will continue to be the general theme. Listen, despite market volatility in the short term, the work will continue, and it needs to continue because it's such an important industry for the province.
Do you see any other macro themes emerging at this conference? Gold is always at the forefront, but also do you think we'll be looking more at base metal projects now?
Yeah, I know there's always a lot of copper exploration down in South BC. I know I was talking to Andy Randall this morning. He's got a little bit of a private project, and hopefully we'll get him on the podcast later this week to kind of share that. There's a lot of great effective land out there in BC that I think for base metals you could definitely see a pickup. The Golden Triangle. I mean, that's obviously well endowed in mineralization. The problem is it's so expensive, and you don't just have like one type of mineralization. You maybe have like 3 or 4 different styles, and how do you kind of manage that?
Now I'm curious to see the fallout from the Pretium takeover as well. So
yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah,
like
we'll see.
Ascot, Skeena, Scotty Resources, all that area. Curious if that's heating up as well.
The Ascot story has been really interesting. I mean, they're a sponsor of the podcast, and so I talk to them quite frequently. And man, it's one of those things like inflation just kind of hit at the wrong time to build a mine.
Yeah.
And I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Can you really budget in if you're putting together a full feasibility study? Can you successfully budget in 7 to 10% inflation on your costs?
Like impossible.
Isn't that wouldn't investors at the time find that can be completely unreasonable?
Well, it screws with your numbers at the time as well. If you
hell
factor
yeah.
that in, you have the contingency,
Yeah.
which depends is 15, 20% max.
Right.
Right. That's what that room is for, but you can't plan for inflation. I've been having a discussion the other day with somebody talking about hedging, especially in the oil and gas business, like oil and gas, like airlines do it for their kerosene. They forward buy a ton of kerosene, for example, at a set price. Like, why does nobody do that? Or like, it's not as prevalent in mining. It feels like the hedging business.
It has been done.
Right.
I think it has been done a few times.
So
I can't think of an example.
yeah, it's like, but you don't hear it as much.
No, you
right?
don't.
Like in that regard, like why does Berg not hedge its gold, or even gold hedging to a degree?
Well,
like right now,
you could also get bit in the ass.
Oh, for sure. Well, look at I think Three Valley Copper, who has an offtake agreement at $2.80 per pound of copper, at $4.50, right? So as a negative
Boom.
example,
Yeah.
right? So, but exactly, right? So that's where it can bite you in the ass, as you said.
Yeah.
Right?
But I do think like the macro trends, like this is like this, the general theme I'm interested in this week to have conversation is really, are people paying attention to the macro trends? I mean, I sit back and I kind of watch everything, see the forest through the trees. And I just have so many questions about, okay, we're in an inflationary environment. Are we seeing inflationary pressures in this sector on wages? We're obviously seeing it on a lot of things we need to build. Obviously, we just talked about Ascot. We're seeing it in drilling. Costs have gone up, if it's even available. But like this sector is not immune to inflationary pressures. So how are companies kind of dealing with that? I mean, I think they need to make a very give some pertinent thought to what and be very transparent with what they're doing, because costs are not what they were 2 years ago, nor are they going to go back to where they were 2 years ago. Now, if we're sitting at 7% inflation now, maybe it does decrease. What if we settle at 4%? How does that affect your bottom line as an exploration company? And on top of that, one of the big ideas that I'm really starting to wonder about, which I would love to partner with you sometime, is what does capital raises in the sector look like in a rising interest rate environment? So that's the general theme. Like the market is expecting the Federal Reserve to raise their rates starting in March. I mean, they're even talking, Jamie Dimon came out last week and said he maybe 5 to 6 interest raises.
Yeah, it's maybe 7 by the end of March, or by
I mean,
March
what if they
2023.
do? What if they do raise it 0.25% every month in 2022? But so how does that affect? How would that affect the capital going into this sector? Now we saw it in 2020 when there was a hot run of capital coming in to exploration. The gold market was doing really well. Gold was making all-time highs. I mean, I remember talking to you when we were making new highs in equity raises almost every week on the Ore and Inc index. But we had low interest rates. I mean, those things were, the Fed funds rate is at 0.25%. It still is. But what if they raise that? I mean, how does that affect the money coming into the sector? And I honestly don't know. I'm just kind of curious what kind of effects there would be.
No, that's a good question, because last year we closed with a record number. Like we're only below 2011 numbers now.
Right.
We raised about $5.7 billion in our sector, meaning companies below 1.5 billion market cap and financings below $100 million. That's just a junior sector.
Mm-hmm.
That's a massive number. It's the second highest since 2011 that we've been tracking.
Right.
Like, but how does that fit together? Because nobody cares about the gold, obviously. So where does the money go to, and why is it going into our sector? Right. Based on the sentiment I'm seeing on the overall market.
Right. Well, and I do think, listen, we are obviously pushing liquidity out to the far end of the curve here, to where it's investments are getting very, very speculative. I mean, there's no denying that. We're seeing non-revenue generating tech stocks, well, they were at all-time highs, and NASDAQ was obviously crushed it in the last couple of years. Cryptocurrencies were crushing it. But we've seen this correction happen with general turn in the stock market on the back of this expectations of rising prices. But why? I mean, if we know that once we get investments out that far end of the yield curve, and which means we've got a lot of speculative money going into very risky plays. I mean, isn't mineral exploration one of those risky plays? Isn't that what we saw in 2020? I mean, why not? I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but we keep on saying that this is a speculative industry. Like, you don't invest, you speculate. So aren't we a part of the equation? If you're seeing shit projects get a ton of money just because there's all this hot money and it's speculative because we're pushing it out on the Ukraine. I mean, I think it's the same part of it. I really do. It's not a value. There's no value. But you don't have a resource. You don't have value.
Yeah. No, really good point. Really wondering also where that money flows and what it creates, actually, whether it creates value. That's the next question. Like, what does it get spent on?
Well,
right?
yeah.
So
it gets spent on fools like you and me.
Probably, yes. Well, we can hope, right? But no, it's like one of the things I actually noticed looking at the top 10 financings or bigger financings, they all went to companies that are in development phase.
Right.
And we've seen a lot of M&A actually last year, more than I expected to happen. Especially towards the end of the year, like in December, we've seen that. We talked Preddy and we talked Corvus. They're in the office here with us.
Yeah, this is what an acquisition looks like. It is empty in that Corvus office.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's quite fascinating.
That's the effect of that. It's fun to watch, actually.
Value. It looks like emptiness in empty company room.
Exactly, but like also, does it flow into the ground? Like, do we really see that money translate into drill meters, into studies and values? Like that, those are like KPIs that should generate value.
It's supposed to be boring. You know, I mean, obviously we get good drill hits and that's exciting, but like exploration is long. It's tedious. I mean, it shouldn't be all that exciting. If you're doing, if you're doing right now, if you get a good discovery, obviously that's exciting. But that's just the first step of a whole project, or one of the steps.
Well, it takes, what is it, on average 10 years to get a mine into production? Like, what's like, if you're lucky, sometimes it's faster, sometimes it takes much longer.
And that's like, porphyry projects are much longer. We've had this discussion. Like there's a lot of great porphyry projects out there. Like, I do wonder if they will miss the cycle because they take a long time. Oh yeah,
there's definitely a few I've talked to recently where it's like, yeah guys, good luck. There'll be a downturn before you go into production.
But they'd be set up for the next cycle potentially.
But are you as a shareholder patient enough to wait it out?
I mean, I am.
Depends on the company, I guess.
But, listen, like, I think my outlook as a personal investor is like I got a long time here. I'm not like trying to flip and trade junior stock. No, if something runs up pretty well, and it's like I should. Profit.
Yeah, I'm a hodler too. So.
You're a hodler?
I'm a hodler, unfortunately. So I'm a bad trader. Like, I do private placements. I rarely buy in the market personally.
Yeah, it's actually, I think, very refreshing when you recognize that, like, man, I am not a very good.
Like, I always miss it. Like, that's the thing, because I don't look at it daily. Like, I try to, like, but I miss it. Like, I do see trends and stuff happening, but I'm also a hopeless optimist. So
that's the problem.
All right. So, but I've been getting better at not falling in love with stocks. I have my favorites, but I'm willing to cut ties any day now when I see something that
Listen,
doesn't really fit my philosophy anymore.
I really think that if you're right, you shouldn't fall in love with a stock. If it runs up on unexpectedly, you should take some money off. I mean, it's all about managing risk, right?
Exactly.
Because we've seen it time and time again. When these equities in this sector make a run, it's very, very short-lived, and your window of taking profit is closing by the second.
Absolutely. Here, I want to switch gears a little bit and
okay.
come back to you. Actually, I named the video meet the most interesting man or the best mining podcaster. Okay, and the reason I say
some people say it's the fifth best, but thanks.
Dude, like your work ethic alone puts you at number one. Okay, like you put out a podcast even before I get up. Okay, so
I got an hour advantage, but thanks.
Still, like it's up at 5:30, which is 6:30 your time,
right.
which is 5:30 my time, which is absolutely insane. Because I don't even function till like 7 properly. Okay, so that makes you number one in my books. But you decided to add to that workload.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did.
You started a newsletter on Substack.
Yep.
Together with Paul Harris.
Yep.
And why?
I think a couple of reasons. Well, bringing Paul on obviously opened up the opportunity, the time to do something like this. He's been tremendous guy to bring on, not only to help me write the Substack, but also to kind of fill in with the podcast, so the podcast doesn't weigh, with the time schedule. So it's one of those 1 + 1 = 3 type of thing. So he's helping out with the podcast. I mean, his Rolodex of contacts has been absolutely incredible, and I've been a real joy to work with him. He's a gem in this industry. Paul Harris, if you don't know him, you should look him up. I'm happy to have him on working with me. So why do we start?
Like you talked about, maybe come back to like you talked about excitement in the sector. Okay, so I'm wondering, you must have seen something that triggered it. Like, okay, it's worth adding that extra workload to it, because in the end, like risk return, right? Like effort and return, like 80-20 rule. Why do it if it doesn't produce a return? That's my philosophy. Since we're somewhat of a mining investment podcast, like, what do you expect to get out of it? What's the idea?
I don't know. I don't really expect to get anything out of it. I don't know. So listen, Substack. So if you're interested, msdextra.substack.com is where you can go to find the newsletter. We put it out Monday through Thursday after market close. We talk quick bullet points, macro news, quick bullet points, mining, exploration news. Put the previous day, the day's episodes of the podcast on there. And then we also add an editorial section from Paul and I, which has been fun. I'll dive into that a little bit. But the thing about Substack, so Substack was created for journalists who were kind of fed up with the media business to be able to cut ties with big media and continue their work and write about what they wanted to, and then be able to provide that content at a premium, so you can subscribe to these journalists or newsletter writers and get them. It's a great business. It's great. It's been a great platform to work with. I had this idea a few months ago. Doomberg, the Green Chicken, has been just a wonderful outlet for ideas. I said, Doom, Mr. Berg, I've got this idea. I'm thinking about doing this. And he literally said, like, within 5 seconds of the DM chat, he's like, sounds like a great idea. Do it. Like, okay, we're going to do it. So we got the platform ready. Early December, I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I shared it with a few friends. You were one of them. I said, this is what we're going to launch in January. Give me any sort of feedback. And you literally had 0 feedback, which means you were a terrible help.
No, it's like, but now I read it daily. It's fantastic because it's compact.
It is compact, but it's just it's another representation of the podcast. It's brief, it's exact, and to the point, because not everybody wants to sit down and listen to an hour or read for an hour. I totally get it. So when we launched it, that I think it was Tuesday morning, January 5th or whatever. Maybe it was Wednesday. I can't remember. So we had 10 followers on the Substack.
I think I was follower number 3 though.
You were
or
early.
2.
You were
okay.
early.
Give me that.
We have now over 750 followers, which doesn't seem like a lot in the big scheme of things, but for this sector, I'm very happy. We are also getting double that per Substack newsletter of viewership. So we're getting like 15 to 1,700 views per newsletter.
For junior, like, I love that you mentioned, like, for this sector. Like, it's a very niche sector. So,
yeah, but
the numbers are actually great. Like, you're touching a bit on the macro, but in the end, it's a junior mining newsletter because you talk junior mining and you give your take on junior mining news most often.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I'll editorialize. Last week I was like, it was crunch for time. I was doing other things for from work, and I was trying to hustle through, and I wrote this piece. Like, I don't have anything to share. Any thoughts about this sector specifically? Nothing anecdotal at the day. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write about myself.
I love that piece, by the way.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Because, it was like gold was down. Everything was down. Things were blood red. Vancouver was crying. All these things. And like, what am I going to say? Like, yeah, the day sucked. But it's not forever. It's just we expect volatility in the day. It's like, you know what? Like, here, find some joy. Send.
It was great. It was a personal piece about your mother playing piano in the house and the sound and like how it made you feel, right?
Right.
Well, it made me think about me playing the flute and my kids playing the flute at home, and that didn't make me feel good at all. So it actually gave me a chuckle. Okay?
Yeah.
So that brought back some memories, and I was like, "Oh, this is awful. I hope my kids don't ever play the flute."
I didn't know you played the flute, guy.
As a kid, dude, in Germany, actually, like first, second grade is one of the first instruments you learn is like a little flute thing. It's just awful.
You need to bust into like Ron Burgundy jazz flutes?
No, that fortunately not. Like, I wasn't talented enough, so that.
Yeah. Never. So anyway, so a lot of this I get to editorialize this. I haven't been as editorial on the podcast over the years, but I always feel like I have something to say. People email me, ask me my opinions and stuff from time to time, and I give them in those personal emails responses. But in the newsletter, I just think there's a lot of things out there. Like, if I have something to say, there's an outlet to say it. If you don't agree with me, fine. Like,
absolutely.
We can all disagree. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. It's just my thoughts out on paper. If you hate it, don't read it.
Exactly. No, perfect. Like, it needs that outlet. I think people want to hear more personal opinion. Yeah. Like, I'm giving a presentation tomorrow on the evolution of marketing, and authenticity is definitely one of it. And personal opinion does factor into that authenticity part. Mm-hmm. Right? I think that's really, really key. I recently set up my own personal Twitter account just so I can be more vocal on certain things that are closer to my heart that I want to share with people.
Well, I think I think being authentic is key, right? I mean, if people are going to connect with you as an individual quite faster than they would with, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a personal relationship. We're still talking mining investing as well, so there needs to be a trusted relationship. Like, that's the overall. Like, if you look around the studio, like, you don't see any flashy colors here. Like, nothing too bright. Like, this is the brightest.
Dude, this is the brightest studio. Like, mine.
No, it's like, look at the colors. Like, we're talking about, like, okay, we got lights and stuff, but like, there's no neon lights, like, or Bitcoin dances. Like when you look at Bitcoin, it's all flashy. It's like, it reminds me a bit of the LSD colors and like the cannabis boom. It was all flashy, colorful.
You should find those two kid hip hop guys that did the
the Island Boys.
The Island Boys. Bring those in here. Bring them in here.
Yeah, I got a second chair right there for them as well. Like, talk about that. Oh my! But that's not our sector, which I'm happy about. Like, if I see people like that dancing to gold stocks or something like that, like, I'd be out. Like,
it's funny. Like, you could look back in hindsight what the top was, right? I mean, I know Jared Dillian writes the Daily Dirt app. He was like, looking back, we knew, like, AMC was a top, like the signals were all there. It's just time.
Was it though, or was it just an influx of people getting $2,000 from the government and boredom?
I think I don't think you can put it all on just like one thing, like,
because it happened around the time the checks came out.
But it all comes back to stimulus. So you're flushing so much cash into the system. You're increasing demand But at the time of the pandemic, you're like, well, what am I going to do with this money? Like I can't. I'm not going to go buy a car yet, or whatever.
Not for $2,000.
Or $2,000. Like, so you put it into the market. Like, what's happening now, or what has happened the last 2 years, is not hardly. I mean, it's different in specifics, but the general themes are very similar to what happened leading up to 2008, leading up to 2000, and leading up to the early 80s. Right? Like financial history isn't always specifically the same, but god damn it rhymes really well.
Well, we didn't have meme stocks in 2008. That just didn't exist. So
no, but
they were named differently.
But you had equivalent meme stocks and the internet stocks in 2000.
We did. Yeah.
There's so many things happening right now. If you again take a step back, look at the forest through the trees. It's mass chaos in this world. But if you can take a step back without judgment and just kind of witness everything that's happening, and then do a little bit of historical research of what happened in other market cycles, you will understand. You will see what's happening. Yeah. It's all out there, and which is part of why we've been diving into the macro a lot on the podcast, because it's so important to understand. Historically what has happened, and then you can position yourself better presently.
I'm outing myself as a huge fan, but I listen to all your weekend long form podcasts, because they're good on summarizing the macro, what is going on. Who do you have on? Jesse Felder, I think, on Friday.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Great conversation, right? So those macros, and really curious, we should talk on Friday again and see how the macro translate into the conference. Circling back now.
Yeah, it would be pretty interesting to see. And it's a general theme. I'm going to ask a lot of people this on the podcast this week about our environment. So we'll see it evolve. I wish I could give you a solid answer. I mean, maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't care. I mean, it's about the rocks, not the stocks, right? So, does the macro environment change the geology? Hell no.
No, but I think you hit the nail on the head there. You talk to the geos. Oftentimes they're the field managers as well. So you can talk about pickup time delivery. They order a new pickup for their project, right? Mm-hmm. How long does it take for that to get delivered? I talked to a drill contractor last September. He said by the time September came, he already had 3 pay raises in that year. That's the information you will need to pick up on, right? I think those are the answers you're looking for.
Does that mean they're going to have to raise more money? Because obviously, the same amount of money isn't going as far.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of factors weighing on the mining industry now that we're talking openly. That will push cost inflation. One of them is ESG. There's going to be a lot more focus on that, but also then cost inflation from the inflation side, meaning shortage of labor. We have influx of capital in the sector, but we don't have enough drillers, for example. Overall supply chain issues, I talked trucks and chips and stuff like that. It all comes down to that. Helicopter availability, things like that. So because there's more money, there's more remote exploration probably. Now it comes to helicopter availability, things like that. It's going to be interesting. We will need to raise more money, but the question is what is enough? And where does the money flow? Because we've had a fantastic year last year. It was a great year. It didn't feel like it at all. If I look at my portfolio, it wasn't a great year at all.
When you put out that Ore and Ink stuff, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I didn't see it coming.
No, and I have to do a year review. Unfortunately, I was supposed to speak at Cambridge House, and I usually prepare my year-end review for that presentation. But I need to put out some slides just to summarize what 2021 looked like. Yeah. It was mind-blowing. Even the average amount of dollars raised, we're close to $5.5 million per financing. That's huge. Back in 2013, 14, even 15, we were around $2.5 million. That tells you that we had a lot of financings that just kept the lights on.
Right.
This year or last year, we raised way more money. That's why I'm saying hopefully we generate more value out of this, meaning studies, drill results, and things like that. I think we see quite a few drill results coming out, good and bad. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that translates into that, and that's what we're seeing right now.
In general, that's the general macro theme. I think people in this space. How far is that money going?
Where's it spent?
Where's it being spent?
Perfect. Trevor, I really appreciate you coming to the studio. Thanks
Is that a wrap?
It is a bit of a wrap. Okay. We're already at 34 minutes. This is the longest podcast I've done in a long time, and we could be chatting forever. Yeah. And maybe we should have done this for an hour and a half. And
we'll go have beers tonight.
Yeah, we'll do that, and we won't record that conversation. But No, I really
You
appreciate.
didn't even yell angry German at me tonight.
Not yet.
Guy.
That'll happen tonight.
Okay.
That'll happen tonight. You were, dude. I told you to be here at 45. You showed up at 35. Like, how can I be angry with you? Like, so. No, I appreciate you coming in. Thanks for stopping by. It was great. Thanks for lifting the skirt on the new Substack, msdextra.substack.com.
Yeah, msdextra.substack.com. Free newsletter. You can subscribe. It gets delivered to your mailbox every day when it publishes. But it's also online if you want to share it.
Fantastic. So. And your podcast, Mining Stock Daily, on all podcast platforms.
Yep. Spotify, Anchor, iTunes, Google, whatever.
Fantastic. Alrighty.
Stitcher if you're weird.
Everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, particularly long form today. Like, meet the man behind the Best Mining Podcast. I hope you learned quite a bit, and hope you took something away from it. Well, looking forward to more conversations this week. It is going to be busy with Roundup in town, so make sure to follow us here on YouTube, follow us on Twitter. We'll have a lot more in-person interviews. Quite a few guests coming to the studio this week, so make sure to follow us and leave a comment and leave a like. Share the interview, and